Well, welcome everybody to the May edition of the Oregon City Business Alliance webinar by Zoom. The good news is we are making a lot of progress with the vaccinations. We are seeing a lot of businesses reopen. Unfortunately, they don't have enough workers to go ahead and fill all the positions, but hopefully all that'll change in the weeks and months ahead. But we're really pleased to have all of you attending today. This is a topic that I think all of us can relate to in one way or another, whether we read about it in the newspapers, whether we watch it on the news, whether we get press releases on the internet. The homelessness crisis is everywhere. And it isn't just in downtown Portland. It's a urban, suburban, and a rural problem. And I think when we start to look at where did this come from and why is it here, we have to actually start looking, well, what are the root causes of homelessness? And then we have to say, there's no amount of money that can really be spent on this type of a problem, an issue that we're facing, unless you take a holistic approach to it and recognize that not one size fits all. Some people are homeless because of drug and alcohol addictions. Some people are homeless because of a lost job or a tragedy in their lives. Some people are homeless because they have other type of addictions, that they have mental health problems or they have depression. And so as we understand and go deeper into looking at the true causes of why people are living in tents and why they don't, some don't want to move into shelters. They like living in their tents. It's important that we keep in mind the most important thing right now is to treat everybody with respect, with dignity, but also give them the proper programs so that they can become productive citizens in our society again. They all need hope and they all need a purpose. And today we're honored and privileged to have a fairly large group of speakers with us that have various backgrounds that are going to go dwell deep into this topic. And hopefully when we're done, we'll have some great ideas, not only where we've been, where we're at, but most importantly, where we're going. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to one of our Oregon City Business Alliance board members, Brian Shaw, who will go ahead and introduce to you each one of our speakers as we go through the webinar. There you go, Brian.
Thanks, Kent. Good job. Hey, good morning. Again, I'd like to thank you for joining the Oregon City Business Alliance and the Homeless Solutions Coalition of Clackamas County, formerly known as Oregon City Homeless Solution Coalition. And today we're going to start off with Captain Sean Davis from the Oregon City Police Department. Actually, we're going to start off with Dan Fowler. Dan was one of the original founders of the Homeless Solutions Committee, Oregon City Homeless Solutions Committee at that time. So Dan, why don't you take off with this, and everybody, if you have questions, put them in these chat box and we'll take care of them at the end of the panelists here, and we'll take it from there. Anyway, Dan, go ahead there.
Okay, thanks, Brian. I'm gonna go to a shared screen here and pull up a PowerPoint. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending today. What I'm going to do is give you a brief history of what now is known as the Homeless Solutions Coalition of Clackamas County. We gave this presentation a few years back, but there's been some changes, and obviously there's some new people here today, so we wanted to give you this update. The Homeless Solutions Coalition, as Brian said, started out as the Oregon City Homeless Solution Coalition back in October of 2016. And it's where I, along with Nancy Ide at the time, gathered community leaders from police and parks and downtown and the hospital and school district, just many, many people, just to get together and talk about what was going on in our community. From there, we decided that we really didn't know too much about it, but we had a desire to do something. So we took time to really learn, and we had people come in and help educate us who are a little bit further down the road in terms of their approaches for homelessness in their areas. That expanded out to us having community meetings. This was when we held it back in March in 19, when we could actually be together, and we're looking forward to doing that again. And we had those community meetings at the Willamette Falls, Providence Willamette Falls Education Center within their auditorium. And we would cover various topics at those meetings. Again, just really trying to educate ourselves and really bringing people together. One of the outcomes of gathering as a coalition was various service providers got to really know one another and coalesce together and work for solutions that were more efficient and effective. And we had these service fairs in conjunction with our community meetings. In that, now, here we are in 2021, we have over 400 participants in our group of the coalition. We have homeless individuals or formerly homeless individuals that help guide us. Excuse me, we have people from education, from business, from healthcare, faith-based organizations, citizens, law enforcement, and county government, city government. We have a board of directors, and we have an advisory team, and then we have work groups is how we're organized. We are now a nonprofit recognized by the state of Oregon, and we're in the process of getting our 501c3 status at the federal level. These are the individuals who currently sit on our board. Again, a wide variety of individuals. And this is a definition of what homelessness is in terms of what the state recognizes that to be. I don't know if it's showing up on your screen. I'll move my people who are sheltered in emergency shelters and transitional housing programs, adult and children who are unsheltered, staying in places not meant for people to live, such as cars, parks, abandoned buildings, or on the street. And the state of Oregon uses a broader definition of homelessness, which includes people who are in unstable living situations, including temporary stays with family or friends, couch surfing due to loss of housing or economic hardship. So we developed our vision statement, which is compassionate and respectful solutions for homelessness through community partnerships. And this is really what we do. We, as a Homeless Solutions Coalition, we're not trying to replace anyone or any nonprofit, but what we do is we convene. We convene and bring people together. We're a catalyst where partners meet partners and become more effective together, bringing elected officials and private sector together. We engage the community at large. We raise awareness and education. We have support structures for our partners, and we form work groups around specific needs. In 2019, there was a point in time count, and that's the last one we had because of COVID. It's been a little bit difficult to update it in 2020. In the Clackamas County area, the homeless count at that time was 1,166. You can see the prior count in 2017 was 1,068. So who makes up that number? 75% is single adults, 15% is adults with children, 10% is adults with no children, no household data is less than 1%, and unaccompanied children is 1%. Chronically homeless is 39%. It's up since up 48% from 2017. Help is on the way, and other people will talk about this more. As we know, the supportive housing services measure passed in the region. And I can say that I do sit on the Supportive Housing Services Committee at the metro level and one of 5 representatives for Clackamas County. And just yesterday, the county did a fabulous job in presenting their plan to our committee. There was a lot of questions, and it was approved unanimously yesterday by the Supportive Housing Service Committee. And it was commented by several that it was a very upfront plan. They said where they were weak. They said where they needed to do better. And also it was recognized as one of the best plans presented, if not the best plan presented. And one of the reasons why is because it uses community-based organizations a lot in terms of meeting the needs, which you'll hear some about today. And these are the panels today, but Brian's going to take it from there and introduce our next speaker. Thank you so much.
Dan, Brian needs you to be the moderator.
Oh, I'm going to moderate? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to introduce the next speaker, who is Captain Sean Davis of the Oregon City Police Department. And Sean, I'm going to stop my share and you can take it away.
All right, sorry. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right. Open up and share my screen also. Good morning. I just want to briefly discuss homelessness and policing and how they are related. I also want to talk about the unique challenges that we, police, the city, businesses, and the community face. Homelessness is not a crime. However, some of the individuals do commit crimes such as theft, trespass, other city ordinances, and many of these crimes affect businesses, customers, and the community. But we noticed that back in 2017 and earlier, there was a growing homelessness population, and people were wondering what to do. And Chief Band and several of us have been at different organizations and stuff, and we saw different departments creating a homeless liaison officer position. And we didn't know what to do. So in 2017, we decided to see what we could do to build these bridges and get people the resources they need. Some of these challenges since then have been some court rulings on where we can and how we clean up camps. We've developed different policies on that within the city. And our focus is the humane treatment, compassion, respect, just like Dan said. And our goal is to get everyone into housing that we can. So here's a little bit of our homeless liaison officer. In 2017, it was in response to an influx of the homeless population. Through our homeless liaison networks, community relationships, we have access to a variety of available services that support the homeless. The current homeless liaison officer is Dan Haynes. He spends his day contacting as many people as he can. He tries to identify why they're homeless, what their needs are, and then secure the services. But he has to do that through building relationships. He can't just go up to someone and say, hey, you need to move over, we're going to clean up this camp. Right? He needs to build those trust, and that's what he's done. So he's got all this community support. He builds the trust with individuals and then works on getting them housing. In 2020, we also realized that a lot of the homelessness individuals are experiencing mental health crisis, and we hired a behavioral health specialist where her focus is to assist people with that are having a mental health crisis. We can offer them services, get them help. And so between the two of them, they've been very successful in contacting different individuals, finding out their needs, and then getting them in contact with the services they need. I just want to show some calls for service. This is 2020 from Officer Haynes. Not all these calls are, there's probably a lot more calls, but these ones are specifically just when Officer Haynes contacts homeless individuals. So these are the top 4. So he goes out and contacts many people. Sometimes they're called in for trespass. And then he deals with anything that they may have. So he finds if they need a driver's license, he works with the lead team, which I think we'll talk about later. And it's been very successful for that. A lot of the businesses downtown, especially, call us. They contact Officer Haynes for any type of issue they may have, whether that's damage or trespass.
Captain, excuse the interruption, but your mic is cutting in and out. So
okay. Sorry about that.
Maybe not move your head quite as much.
All right, thanks. Here's some more stats. In 2020, we applied for a Metro Enhancement Grant, and we were granted $25,000. We also hired Kevin Dahlgren as a homeless specialist to help us with resources. So in 2021, we contacted 164 individuals, 51 have accepted service. It's either placed in a shelter or housing. 82 referred to programs, 12 camps were cleaned. Since the grant, over 3,000 pounds of trash have been dumped into the metro. So far in 2021, there have been 18 transient camps that have been dealt with by code enforcement, which we work close with, and then 9 vehicle-related complaints. You can see in 2020, we had 73 and 13 respectively. So this is kind of just some pictures just to show you what a camp might be and what it might look like after we get it cleaned up. Some costs that we're dealing with. Again, we got $25,000. We're reapplying for this year for another $25,000, but we spent almost $25,000 of it. We also spend other money in porta potties. We have to hold a pod for property. We buy bus tickets, phones, hotel rooms. That's $60,000, and then our staff salary. So in 2020-21 for that grant, we spent $194,000 on our different homeless with Dan Haynes and Kevin Dahlgren and stuff. Our goal is to get everyone off the streets, and that again is through building relationships. Here's one success story, and this just happened last month, I believe. Officer Haynes contacted the gentleman living in his car down by Johnstone Park. Dan learned about his predicament, why he was homeless, what did he need. He had a job. So Dan worked with LEAD and other resources. They contacted Bybee Lakes. And the next day, this gentleman was placed into Bybee Lakes. And there's a lot of resources out there for individuals that want these. And within a day or two, we could literally get them into some sort of shelter or long-term housing. So again, these contacts, sometimes people are resistant of help, and that's fine. We're just going to keep contacting them. Eventually, one day they might want some resources. So I know we have a real short time. I can go on and on for the whole time, but I'm not going to do that. If you guys have questions, feel free to reach out to me or Officer Haynes, and we'd be more happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Great report. Next, we're going to move kind of quick. We have a lot of speakers, and we want to see if we can actually get to some questions. So next is Lynn Deschler. Lynn is, I would call her Miss Clackamas County when it comes to the homeless issues. She is everywhere doing everything, and she's a great help to all of us. And Lynn, you're going to talk. Well, I'll let you introduce what you're going to talk about. And we can't hear you yet. There.
Okay, there we are.
There you
Okay,
go.
so I'm glad to be here with you today, and I am going to, in a few seconds, give you a very fast overview of a very big topic, the Clackamas Local Implementation Plan for the Metro Bond. So you're all very aware of the Metro Bond, and you're aware that it created a new region-wide response for proven solutions that means affordable homes combined with flexible and wraparound services. This new revenue stream created a new revenue stream. At the time of the election, the measure was estimated to eventually raise $250 million a year for over a 10-year period. So what does this new bond do for Clackamas County? Clackamas County will receive 21.3% of the total revenue, an estimated $53 million annually. That should be put into perspective in that up until recently, we've been spending about $3 million from various streams on housing services. So this is a game changer to be moving from 3 to 53 million. 75% of the funds will be devoted to services for people who have extremely low incomes and have one or more disabling conditions and are experiencing or at imminent risk of homelessness. And 25% will be devoted to services for people who are currently experiencing homelessness. RFPs have been submitted by the Housing Authority of Clackamas County, which is administering using these Metro funds. And it is anticipated that soon after June 10th, which is like almost tomorrow, the awards for this first go around will be announced. Some of the things in the plan, this big, huge plan that Dan talked about, that's many pages, includes outreach and engagement. That's connecting people with resources to meet their basic needs. The coordinating housing access line, I'm going to say more about that in the next slide. Mental health outreach, cultural specific services, and housing readiness services. Outreach and engagement involves all these things and means one-on-one contact with professionals who go out and meet with folks that are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. The coordinated housing access and diversion is a major part of the plan. So what's coordinated housing access? It aims to help people find immediate alternative housing arrangements. The goal is to expand to create a true no wrong door 24/7 coordinated entry system. This means one phone number that people can call for housing emergencies, issues, needs, just one phone number rather than having to go around to a million different CBOs, agencies, and not really know how to get into the services that they need. When you call this one number before placing people into housing, if housing is available, diversion is attempted, which would mean how can we empower a person to problem solve their situation and maybe find other ways other than needing subsidized housing, and connect them with mainstream community resources that can also help them problem solve. Immediate housing is a part of the plan, but immediate housing is interim housing. It's transitional housing. It's housing that people get a roof over their heads, but it's connected with navigation and placement services to connect the participants with permanent housing eventually. And that permanent housing may or may not include short-term or long-term subsidy and housing options. Housing navigation, flexible services for housing navigation include housing search assistance, landlord engagement where needed, maybe assistance with applications, maybe assistance with moving application fees, security deposits, things of that nature. Supportive housing. What's supportive housing? Supportive housing is an affordable housing combined with ongoing services that help a person achieve stability in housing. Sometimes folks that have been living unsheltered for a long time don't do well in permanent housing unless they have the support of some case management, maybe some on-site staff support. So supportive housing is an enormous part of the current plan that will be coming down the road. The next thing is short-term rental assistance. This includes rental assistance and supportive services that can be used to help prevent a family or an individual from becoming homeless. This might involve mediation between landlord and resident, short-term rental assistance, supportive housing for up to 2 years. But it also always includes a plan to help a person increase their income through education and in benefit supports or employment, and also a plan to graduate a person from being in subsidized housing to housing that they can afford themselves. Another significant part of the plan is wraparound supports. So what's wraparound supports? Wraparound supports involves many things, and it is not necessarily just connected to folks that are in permanent housing programs. It can be people who are at risk. And that can involve health services like mental health, addiction recovery, wellness programs, behavioral health supports. It can include peer support services. Those are trauma-informed services with peers, people who have been where the client is and can walk along with them. Education, training, and employment services aimed at increasing income as part of the program. And then also help with legal services and benefits navigation. All of this is a whole array of services that folks who are experiencing homelessness or at risk may encounter or may need. And so why is July 1st important? July 1st is important because that's when the new funds start flowing, we hope. Now, of course, this first time around, it won't be the $50+ million. It'll be more in the $27 million range. That's still a lot of money for a county that's only had a few $1 million up until now. Some new contracts will be in place this summer. We have still much planning to do and to create smooth flowing systems. You can imagine this is to organize and manage this new system will be a daunting task, which the Housing Authority of Clackamas County has taken on and is staffing up to manage. There'll be increased services in coming months and years, since this is a 10-year flow of income, and there will be ongoing evaluation and community engagement. So I don't know if I did that in 5 minutes, but that is my share. I do want to say one thing. I know there was a question about vaccination for homeless people, and it doesn't fit into my presentation, but a quick answer on it is that a great many of our homeless residents have been vaccinated. There's been an ongoing work group meeting with the Housing Authority. We meet almost every 10 days to talk about this issue, how to set up clinics for people who cannot otherwise get to the normal places like the convention center or schools and so forth. Father's Heart has had ongoing vaccinations done by Oregon City Fire. Clackamas Service Center has ongoing vaccinations done by Outside In. We've been working with the rural communities to set up vaccination clinics there. So, you know, probably not everybody's vaccinated yet, but a good number are. The ones that have wanted to take advantage of this certainly have. I think I froze. Can you hear me? Oops.
Okay.
Okay,
Lynn,
I'm
thank you.
done.
Brian, are you back? Or you want me to, you went away. Okay, I guess I'm gonna keep going. So to say the least, when you have an influx of money, it's a real game change moment for all of the counties, but especially Clackamas County in terms of providing services for the homeless. And it's going to be exciting to see. And I will say that there were 39 different applicants for the grants that are coming up. They're being reviewed, as Lynn said, first part of June, and hopefully you'll see those take place then in the summer and fall of this year. So next up is Bill Stewart. Bill is the assistant DA. Bill has been a champion for the homeless and has provided great leadership. And he's going to share really some things where the rubber hits the road, some real efforts that he's been a part of to bring this issue right down to the street level. So Bill, I'm going to let you take it from there.
Thanks, Dan. Again, my name is Bill Stewart. I'm a community prosecutor with the Clackamas County DA's office. I've been doing that particular job for 15 years. So I'm the guy in the county who has ended up prosecuting a number of homeless folks over the last 15 years. And I guess I would tell you that this is a time of significant progress in our county in terms of addressing chronic homelessness. And what I mean by that, and this goes to one of the questions I saw in the chat, is that we've been able to bring together a collaborative effort that has improved public safety and livability by reducing the number of homeless folks on the street. And the way I approach this from my perspective is, don't get me wrong, I think it's great we find housing for folks. My job is to make this community safer and to improve community livability. And this, what I'm seeing in the last 6 to 8 months, is some of the best tools and the best progress we've seen. And kind of the basis for that progress, and I'm going to touch on some of these, I'm only going to speak in more detail about LEAD, but Captain Davis talked about the LEAD program, which is also known as Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. Our community court program has made a significant contribution. The COVID monies that came from the federal government that allowed people to be placed in motels and hotels on a temporary basis has made a significant impact. We also have a program that's been a part of this called the Neighborhood Livability Program. And then finally, one of my favorite people, Brandy Johnson, is going to talk about the Rotary Loved One Shower Cart, which I think is a phenomenal tool for addressing homelessness and improving community safety. But let me first start with LEAD. So LEAD began as kind of a pilot project back in January of 2019. We currently we brought in 177 folks as kind of our most recent capture, and the folks that we're trying to bring into LEAD are those that are chronically homeless, drug affected, and engaged. And I want to say the first thing about this is that this is a profoundly different approach than anything I've seen in the past 15 years. It's patient, it focuses on the individual, it moves at the homeless individual's pace and interest, and it goes to where the homeless person is. Quite frankly, when we expect chronically homeless people to get themselves up to red soils to engage in services, that's a very challenging thing for someone who's chronically homeless. This program, with our on the ground lead team, they go out and they stay with these folks. Sometimes they transport them. It's a collaboration of our law enforcement partners. Oregon City PD is a part of it, Community Corrections, the Housing Authority, Central City Concern is the folks who actually employ our lead team. We have defense bar folks in there, and then I'm in there for our office. We've seen significant effects in reducing arrests, new cases, the failure to appear where somebody doesn't show up for a court date, and days spent in jail when you compare the 6 months prior to somebody coming into the program to their time coming out of the program. But the really exciting stuff that I wanted to touch on is that our lead team has actually been getting folks housed. And from a DA's perspective, what that means is they're not dumping trash in someone's yard. They're not stealing stuff. They're, I'm not trying to say all homeless people engage in criminal activity, but the ones that I work with have often run afoul. When we house them, they tend not to do that anymore. And so since the program began, they've housed up to 49 folks, but a lot of this has happened in the last 6 to 8 months. So 27 have been permanently housed, 12 are currently in motels, and of those 12, they're all working to move them out. That's a temporary program. We're trying to get those folks into permanent housing. They've got 8 where they have the housing bachelor submitted, 4 that have actually been secured, and they're working to find applies. As you can imagine, that's a moving target. The rest are, we have 1 in shelter, 3 in recovery housing, 3 in assisted living, and 3 are housing preserved. And to me, this is a game changer. The LEAD program has developed to the point where it is the best thing I have seen for addressing homelessness in this county. So where do we go next? I see I'm at 4 minutes and 20 seconds. So let me briefly say, our partners have submitted an RFP for using supportive housing funds to expand it. I quite frankly would like to see LEAD at least doubled, if not tripled. We need to go into more rural areas because trying to address homelessness in the sandy, Estacada areas, again, having the resources here doesn't help. We got to get out to them. We need to develop a stronger mental health focus and capability, and we need to do even a better job of measuring what kind of impact we're having on the streets. So I'm right at 5 minutes. I'd love to talk more, but I won't, and I'll take any questions you guys have at the appropriate time. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Bill. I'll just add, because Bill talked about the rural community, the Metro bond is for the metropolitan area, but the Clackamas County is committed to a whole county approach. So, so those rural communities can still be part of the program. Okay, next, Brandy Johnson, who is Executive Director of Love One, is going to share a very exciting program that is having results right here in Oregon City and other communities. Brandy.
Thanks, Dan. I'm going to talk a little bit about Love One and what we do in working with many of our houseless folks in Oregon City and Clackamas County. So Love One started with providing free laundry to families and individuals in need. We've continued that for the last 9 years. But when COVID hit, we had to get a little bit creative and transition to outdoor events. We also added showers. So that's kind of what the project I'm going to spotlight a little bit today. We found a need. We had folks showing up to our laundry events who were experiencing infections and infestations at a rate we had never seen. No longer having access to soap and water to wash their hands or take showers was detrimental to their health and hygiene. Folks showed up. One person in particular had to use a pocket knife, or chose to use a pocket knife, to cut an infected spider bite out of his arm, and then needed appropriate medical care when he arrived at our event. We also saw an increase in bed bugs and lice and other infestations because of that. And through collaboration with the Homeless Solutions Coalition and Bill Stewart and his connection with Rotary fundraised to purchase this mobile shower cart for us. And so we now run showers at Milner Vet in Oregon City on Sundays. We've done outreach to the Neighborhood Association. We've worked with the Oregon City Commission. And we work with local volunteers and residents of the neighborhood to support the shower cart efforts. And through that, we can build relationships with folks. So I heard Captain Davis mention this, and I heard a few other folks also. The importance of the relationship building piece with the folks that we're providing services to is really the catalyst for success as far as figuring out what wraparound supports, what programs are really a good fit, and how we can tailor these things to meet their needs. As far as a blanket solution, I personally don't believe that there is one, because every individual has a different story, a different life experience, different traumas. And so when people are taking showers, when they're at the laundromat, there's a lot of time spent hanging around, getting to know people. And so really the heart of what Love One does is build relationships so that we can assist people in whatever the next steps are. So capacity and funding has been an issue, but thanks to a recent partnership with OHA, our COVID relief funds have been applied to the shower cart, to laundry supplies. We also expanded to food boxes. So we're serving housed and unhoused with our food box program. But really what we're doing is we're building community, we're building support and relationships. So people are showing up to help one another. They're more likely to come and help out at events. And that's really how we run, is we're all volunteer run. And a big piece of what we do are our community partners. So you'll see Amy Jo Cook with Clackamas Fire in that middle picture. She comes out to our laundry events and provides COVID vaccinations for us. We have Anna with Cascade AIDS Project. She does some basic medical checks, as well as provides rapid HIV and Hep C and syphilis testing. And then on the right, we have the GO team, which has been rebranded to the Safe and Strong team with Clackamas Behavioral Health. And so they've been there providing mental health supports to our neighbors. And as I mentioned, through these opportunities to get to know folks, we're able to connect them to many of the resources that you've already heard about today. We work with the Father's Heart, we work with the LEAD program, we work with the Homeless Solutions Coalition and all of the partners that attend those meetings and gatherings. We have two neighbors in particular I wanted just to touch briefly on. We have Lori here. She was living in her van. She'd been evicted, and she'd been coming to our laundry event for a few years. And with help from Robin at Father's Heart and myself and Jennifer, we were able to get her into long-term permanent housing. She's been housed for the summer will be 2 years, and she comes back to our events, and she actually runs our hygiene distribution program, trains volunteers, and attends our trainings. So every once in a while we have volunteer trainings like de-escalation and suicide prevention, and Lori participates in those. And she's doing really, really well. But we worked directly with her to help meet the specific needs that she had to make that a successful transition. And then on the right, we have Coffee. He's been coming to our laundry and shower events for the last year and a half or so. And just last week, he moved into an apartment, and we are assisting with providing the essentials to furnish his apartment and keep him in contact with the supports that he needs. And I know I'm just about at 5 minutes, but to touch on the partnership with LEAD, another example of how this works is I received notice that there would be a camp clearing on Monday, and was asked if I knew who the parties were at that particular camp. And off the top of my head, I didn't, but at laundry, I found out who it was, and it was someone that I know very well. So I was able to have a conversation with them about that, and they wanted to know if the LEAD team was really as good as they sounded. They were surprised at just the outreach and the compassion that the LEAD team had done with them. And because of the work that we do with LEAD and because of our relationship with Bill, I was able to confirm that information and let them know that, yes, this was something that would move forward. And now I'm working with Wendy with LEAD to make sure that that transition happens successfully. So it really is a team effort. It takes a lot of unsiloing between all of the different organizations and groups doing this work to support the individuals who are working hard to transition out of their current situation. Thank you.
Very good, Brandy. Thank you for the real life stories that you've just shared. I hope you folks listening today are starting to get the picture that, you know, everyone is trying to end homelessness, and they're saying, you know, how do you do that? And one of the key elements, as we just heard, is to build trust. Because if you're building trust, then the person isn't suspicious of the government or what they're going to do. And it really gets you, so you get to know them and you know what they need, and you're able to really steer that individual to get the help that they need. And when things like shower carts or emergency shelters are presented and need action within cities, those are the vehicles, those are the entities that reach out to the homeless, that builds the trust, that gets the homeless into permanent housing, which gets them maybe out of the community, like not that they're not in the community, but out of being homeless within the community. So supporting and getting things like the shower carts in various jurisdictions is critical, because that's where now you've got a node that your wraparound services like mental health, behavioral health, dentistry, housing can be there, and they're all part of that trust factor. So it's a real piece of solution is to have those kind of elements within the community. So, okay, enough of that. Next up, Adam, and Adam is with Second Home, which is an exciting program working with youth and the youth homeless issue, and works close with the school district. So Adam, take it away and share with everyone here what you do.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. As Dan mentioned, I am Adam Jenkins. I work for the Second Home program, which is a program of Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon. And specifically, I am working with a special population of homeless youth who are called unaccompanied homeless youth, or referred to as unaccompanied homeless youth. These are youth that have been identified within school district service areas who are not only homeless, but they are experiencing their homelessness on their own. And so, yes, as Dan mentioned, I do work closely with the school district partners. How do I, oh man. It's hard to share my screen when I've got all these buttons in front of me. All right, here we go. All right, there we go, now we got it. Serving a special population, as Dan mentioned, working closely with the school districts and closely with students. So every school district has a responsibility of identifying youth who are experiencing homelessness and help equip them with services, whether they be local, state, or federal services within what the liaisons are able to connect them with. And so specifically, I am one of those services. We are a host home program for the youth who are living on their own and experiencing houselessness or homelessness as defined by the school district. It's a little bit bigger than the HUD definition that Dan shared at the very beginning of our presentation. They include in that definition students that are couch surfing, right? So that it's not a place not meant for human habitation. It's a home, but it's somebody else's home, right? And so they include families within that too. So that's all to say, I'm kind of looking at the future, like if we did nothing in the next 5 years, how much homelessness would grow within the region. And that's because 72% of youth who couch surf go on to experience homelessness, become chronically homeless as adults. 52% say they live in unsafe places. That means they get into very difficult situations where they're often sex trafficking is probably the biggest one that we have to fear, or even like trading sex or living in instances where there's a lot of domestic violence within the household, these type of scenarios. So this causes a lot of trauma and then goes on to create, bigger issues regarding houselessness and homelessness down the road. And so what we do specifically is we're early intervention. We try to match youth with volunteer hosts in their community, ideally within their service area, so that they can finish school and go on and live healthy lives, get jobs in the community, go on to higher education, so on and so forth. We do that across Clackamas County. I'm the urban coordinator, and then my colleague Brooke Rodriguez, she is the rural coordinator. And I'll get to why that's important in just a minute. I wanted to hone in on Clackamas County. We do a lot of work with ODE. I also work in East Multnomah County and do some advising for the state programs, the Office of Runaway and Homeless Youth. But in Clackamas County and across the state of Oregon, this is really a public health crisis. We do see the highest rate of student homelessness of just about any state in the nation, and we have the highest rate, I know that for sure, of unaccompanied homeless youth. So in Clackamas, that translates to 11 in the 17-18 school year, 1,155 homeless students across all the Oregon Clackamas school districts. 237 of those students were unaccompanied and homeless. There was a downtick in overall homelessness in the following year, but there was an uptick in unaccompanied homelessness. So you see 282 in the 18-19 school year. And then I went ahead and did something I wanted to highlight for you all. We see homelessness among students occur at the same rate across the urban and the rural area. So we have larger amounts of students that experience homelessness in Oregon City, the highest in the county, that's 100 students. But the rate of homelessness based on like the student population of those school district service areas is actually about the same. It's not just true in Clackamas County, it's true across the state. That's why I say it's a state of Oregon problem. And what I advocate for is area flexible solutions like host homes, where we cultivate a host network within these communities, but also area flexible transitional housing programs, which we could master lease units and help students get into safe housing, or rapid rehousing programs, which help students get to their own lease, maybe with a little bit of rental assistance. And area flexible, I mean, we have organizations that work within those local communities, those local housing markets, to help these individuals get into stable housing in their communities. So then I want to talk a little bit about the difference between the 18-19 school year and 19-20 school year and its impact on our school-based model. We saw a decrease in the number of students overall that experienced homelessness, as well as the unaccompanied youth. I don't think we saw that decrease at all. I think we actually realized an increase. It's just our systems were not able to refer those students. Teachers and counselors weren't able to get in touch with students. We had a lot of movement as far as youth making do and moving with, distant relatives, or, leaving town. We even have instances of our educators educating youth in Mexico and New Jersey through the distance learning model. It just makes it harder for us to connect with the students in this way. So one of the things that we did as a program is we actually expanded our partnership in the area and started partnering with organizations like Northwest Family Services, New Avenues for Youth, that encounter youth through different referral channels, such as coordinated housing access, and then reconnecting them back into their communities with hosts. And we also formed a really close partnership with Parrot Creek and True Housing, as well as Development Northwest, specializing in those transitional housing services and rapid rehousing services I mentioned earlier. And so we created within that partnership the ability to refer within our program, so that we have pathways out of houselessness and homelessness that a student could go. They could go to a host home for a little while and then transition into the rapid rehousing program, where they get their own lease, and then move into a more stable housing scenario. So I just wanted to say, to wrap it up, I'm sure I'm getting close to time. We desperately need youth. We desperately need hosts to house youth in the Oregon City area. We have about 8 students on our wait list through our Northwest Family Service partners, who are hoping to find a host home while they work to get to stable housing. I currently have a youth who is at the Porch Light shelter in downtown Portland. We see that often where youth go to immediate housing resources, and then we try and get them back and connect it in their communities where they're more successful in completing their education and moving on. And we need our business community, our business partnerships to advocate for effective solutions in solving youth homelessness. Because youth homelessness is going to be our chronic homelessness one day. And if we don't do anything about it, our problems are just going to get worse from here on out. So anyway, if you'd like to host, please reach out to Brooke or I. We'd be happy to talk with you, and you can be a part of the solution. And if we could just at least have your support and advocacy, that would do wonders. So thank you, Dan.
Yeah,
And
Adam, I think we're doing pretty good on time. So I'm gonna ask you to drill down just a little bit, because this youth issue is huge for us. And I believe it's an issue that we can literally put a marker down and say, we are going to end youth homelessness by the end of 2022. Like, we need to just make a commitment as a community. So talk a little deeper on the youth, on the host home program.
Mhm.
What is it? How does it work? How can people be involved or get a little bit more about that, if you could? Just take a minute or two.
Sure. So we say we match volunteer host home providers to youth who are in need of stable housing within their communities. And the way that we do that is we have youth referred to us by our McKinney-Vento liaisons. You might know yours in your community. Her name is Mary Ellen. She works with all of the students in the Oregon City community who are in need of support. So with volunteer host home providers from the community, folks that have a spare bedroom could host a student much like you would a foreign exchange student. We give you the opportunity to meet with that student, have a conversation about sharing your home and what that might look like. And then we connect matches with mediators who are then able to mediate like the nitty gritty of that living agreement, so that you feel confident in what that's like moving forward. So we ask our volunteer hosts to host students, much like you would a foreign exchange student, for free. But in exchange for that free housing, the student will agree to finish their high school program. It might be community college. It might be a career development program through CTech Youth Services. They're a great partner of ours. And so they take that time to work on something, basically, in lieu of a rent payment. And then we connect them beyond whatever defined amount of time that is to the housing partners that would then help them move out into their own apartments and that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you for that. I mean, I just wanted to complete that picture a little bit for the audience. And you said it well. This is a program that helps stem the tide of people moving into homelessness. The youth move there if they don't get this help. So, all right, thank you. We'll probably have some more questions here in a minute. Thanks, Adam. So the next speaker is Dave Morris. Dave is a pastor of the Hillside Christian Fellowship in Clackamas, and Dave is a member of our Homeless Solutions board and has some a presentation that he's going to share on how different areas of the community can be involved. So thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you everybody who's part of the Oregon City Business Alliance and on the call. It's always an honor to be with my esteemed colleagues who do so much in this area, in this arena, in helping those that are marginalized in our community. Today, I get the opportunity just to kind of share sort of a new structure that the Homeless Solutions Coalition is working through and connecting the broad band of resources and people engaged in working with the marginalized. But before I really get started, I just want to give kudos again to all that everyone is doing, but specifically to Second Home. Just before this meeting, I was on a phone conversation with a host family who is hosting a student who is a junior. They'll be moving into their senior year, and just the success story of what is transpiring in the life of that student who was in a marginalized setting, in a jeopardized situation, and now is in a more permanent setting for their senior year in high school. Phenomenal. And it's just a connectivity piece of the community working together collaboratively, and so very, very excited. I'm going to share my screen and dive into, I think I am. Let me see if I can do this right. Here we go. Are you seeing my screen? Let me try and get this into the right
Yes, we
location
are.
here. Okay, great. So what you see on the screen now is a former structure of the Homeless Solutions Coalition of Clackamas County, where we had our executive team, and from the executive team, we had a steering committee, and from that steering committee, we would formulate work groups, and that would work with the homeless community. We've re-looked at that, and we're approaching it in a new method where we have an advisory team that will be made up of what we'll call domain liaisons, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But it's really a avenue for two-way communication. You see the outward concentric circle, the Clackamas County citizens, with the green circle, the advisory team, which is, if you will, the stakeholders network, which I'll describe in just a moment. But and the inside structure, the board, the coalition staff, possible executive directors downstream, with work groups being formed. And there's a couple that you see on here that are in the workings right now, with the mobile service mall, the warming shelters, and the possibility of some virtual warehouse. I won't talk about those details today, but in the
Excuse
new
me, Dave.
structure, yeah.
Sorry, is there a way you can make your screen, shared screen, a little bigger? We got some notes from people. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. Awesome.
Okay, sorry about that. So in this new structure, the advisory team replacing the steering committee, kind of our roles: engaging community, we're the eyes and the ears of the coalition, communicates out to community about homeless issues. One thing that you've already heard today from the variety of speakers on the on this group that is speaking, you've just heard the term from my perspective, or from our perspective, and the diversity of those perspectives from law enforcement, from education, from service providers, certainly the Business Alliance, the Justice Department, our faith community, if you will, health and addiction resources. And so what the Homeless Solutions Coalition new structure really is hoping to do is, again, be more effective, be more efficient. I appreciate hearing all of the advancements Bill Stewart mentioned, and so many of those things that are happening at a collaborative level and being more successful than we have been in the past. I think more laser focused, we're more efficient, we're more sustainable, also more streamlined. I think we're going to be able to move more rapidly. For instance, when the cold weather begins and our warming centers, I think what's happening through the coalition, what's happening through the collaborative efforts of all that are involved, we're going to be way more streamlined. And I think we have a broader bandwidth, if you will. Brandy shared that video, or showed the picture of the gentleman who had the t-shirt on that said, "None of us is as smart as all of us." And I think this new structure that the Homeless Solutions Coalition is actually engaging the all of us in a much greater way. And so it also communicates in from the community about successes and the current needs that are there. We meet on a monthly basis. It's a network of stakeholders, and there's recommendations that get made based on the broad band of all those different domains, if you will. And so the stakeholders of the domains that currently are in operation, business alliances, and all of the communities within Clackamas County, certainly Oregon City, the city elected officials and county elected officials, Clackamas County Health, Housing and Human Services Department, law enforcement, faith community, health service providers, and education community. I'm going to skip a couple of slides. Former historical large community meetings, we are now in the new approach, approaching with a domain structure. And I have up here just the education. Mary Ellen was referenced just a moment ago as being that liaison for the Oregon City education. And she meets on a monthly basis with the 10 different brick and mortar school districts with the other liaisons. So that becomes a information gathering and an information disseminating role, whereas the liaison, she can communicate from all other domains what's happening around homelessness and how we're approaching these things, and then can also receive information from the other school liaisons and upload that to our advisory team. And so you see in the center, the advisory team, and we have these different domains like the government domain, service providers domain, faith community domain, schools domain, healthcare, justice, and there will be more domains. And what we're looking to do is, again, educate, be more communicative in terms of connecting resources, connecting organizations. And when we discover successes like we've seen in the second home model and their engagement with the faith community, their engagement with the school districts, what I love about this collaborative effort is, for instance, when a school district says we want to partner with Second Home and help us in our Building for Zero, as Dan referenced, this is something we can put the marker on and say we can eliminate youth homelessness by the end of 2022. And I believe that we can also. We have resourcing now where multiple school districts in our county are engaging with Second Home. And the beauty is we can have Adam or Brooke or someone those brick and mortar school district zones. And so when that information from Second Home gets disseminated to the faith community leads, they can take it to all the churches in the community, and Second Home gets presented in those churches, and we find host homes with inside the faith community, empty nesters who are looking just to have that ability to love on and create a support network. So I know my time is up, so just from a brief introduction, our new structure, we're already seeing successes, we're already seeing greater collaborative efforts, and we're already seeing more dissemination of information and better application of what that. I hope that was good, Dan.
Oh, that's all very good, Dave. Thank you so much. And it's obviously working because you just had a communication today about a host home. So it's pretty exciting for us out here that's working in this every single day to hear the success stories. So thank you all for the presentations. We're going to move now into some Q&A. And I know there was a question earlier about that, Sean, maybe you could answer. And Renata, I guess you may have other questions, but Sean, there was a question in the chat box that we saw about public spaces and how we don't get overran, for the livability of our community. Can you talk a little bit about what your policing policy really is on visual campsites and answer that question for us?
Hey, you bet. It's a great question, and I just didn't have enough time to dive into it into my presentation. But as I started to say at the beginning, homelessness isn't a crime. And the courts have ruled over and over and over again that fining or criminalizing homeless people for sleeping or camping is unconstitutional. And so there's several lawsuits, one in LA, Boise, might be familiar with that, and most recently in Grants Pass, Oregon, of where police departments or cities have been sued for essentially criminalizing people that are homeless for camping when there's no shelter available. So the key to this is there has to be a shelter available to the individuals. So for us, we go out there and we talk to someone who is experiencing homelessness, say they're camping somewhere. If it's on a park, there's park rules that affect everyone. And so we're not just targeting homeless people. No one can camp in a park unless it's a designated area, so we can deal with that differently. But say someone's on a sidewalk or out of sight, but also on city property. We'll go out there ahead of time, Dan will, and he will talk to the person. He will build that relationship. He'll try to get lead involved ahead of time and then try to work with them to get housing. If that doesn't work, if they commit crimes, we will then cite them for the appropriate crime or deal with them. Most of these crimes are low level, so sometimes they don't go to jail. But we refer these individuals to Bill Stewart and the community court. And Bill Stewart will then work on a diversion program with these individuals with the judge to maybe get them ID or get them help that they need or mental health treatment. Whereas they didn't want to do that individually, but they may be able to do that because the judge is requiring them. And then a couple of things we use code enforcement for the private property. So if someone's camping or allowing people to camp on their property, we can use code enforcement. That's a violation of city code. Code enforcement can talk to those private property owners. Most recently, there has been a lot of emails and calls about people camping on under 205 or on ODOT property. And we see that a lot in Portland. That's always no trespassing, but we had to ODOT had to work with the DOJ to allow us to be a person in charge. So now we do the same thing on ODOT property. We don't clean up the camps, ODOT cleans them up. However, we go out there and have the same outreach with these individuals and explain to them that they're trespassing and that they are not allowed to camp there. So sometimes you won't see an immediate response because we have laws on how fast we can get people to move. We can't just go say, hey, you're trespassing, you need to leave now. We have to give them time to pack up. We need to give them resources. We often try to give them bags so they can pick up their stuff and leave it there. And then we'll make it easier for the clean teams to come in. So it's a very complex situation. It's not, and there's a lot of court rulings that keep happening. And so we have to be able to be fluid and adjust to those different court rulings. Hope that answered your question.
Great.
Renata, I'm gonna send it to you. Yeah, go ahead.
We have a question from Kim Foster. She asks, how do you characterize the efforts of Clackamas County toward homelessness versus other cities such as Portland or Seattle? And what metrics will you use to measure success of the program?
Well, Lynn might want to talk, but I can take a little stab at it. In terms of the metrics, it's one of the things that we at the regional level have been talking about a lot, because in order to really judge how we're doing and how we're doing with this money that's coming in, which from a business standpoint, I'm always talking about accountability. I hate wasted effort and I hate wasted money. And so they're committed, and Clackamas County plan calls for this. And by the way, if anybody wants that plan, just maybe email us or let us know, because we have it. It's a public document. It's a great plan to look at. But they're committed to making the metrics the same in all 3 counties, which will give us an idea of how we're doing against other counties. And so I don't know if that directly answers that question, but the metrics are going to be there. There are some standard statewide and national metrics that are out there right now, but they'll be developing the metric models for what we do here locally. Yeah, Bill, go ahead.
In terms of Kim's question about as it relates to how Portland and Multnomah County address homelessness versus how Clackamas County addresses homelessness, I guess I can speak to that. I don't believe you're going to see the concentration of open camping that you have throughout Portland. And by the way, I'm speaking from Northeast Portland right now. I live in here, I should say. It's very different in Clackamas. The way we're approaching this is different, and I think it will stay significantly different because of the focus on community livability and safety. At the same time, guys, I think we're having some significant successes in housing people, which is really exciting, but the focus is on keeping our communities safe.
Brandy, I wanted one thing that you didn't mention in your presentation that just reminded me from Bill's comment just now. Can you talk a little bit about, over the course of the last 2 or 3 months, how many people that came to your shower cart program and how you guys work to get housed?
Love to. So between the end of December and toward the end of March, so just over 3 months, we were able to make more than 40 direct referrals into transitional shelter. And several of those folks have already either gone through the rapid rehousing program, which means that's a very short stay in the motel sheltering situation, or they're applying for apartments, and several have already moved into them. So that was with partnership with Greater Good Northwest, who contracted with Clackamas County for those housing funds. And that's just a very small glimpse of what we have ahead of us with this additional funding.
Yeah. Wow, that's exciting. I mean, for those listening, if you can imagine, 40 people that came to a shower cart program and have now been able to seek other types of housing, it's phenomenal. And that's done through building trust. and then you can offer the services. That's how it really works, you know, so. Okay, Renata, anything else?
We have several more questions. One is, some of the presenters mentioned several different causes of homelessness, such as drugs, mental health, joblessness, etc. Do we know the relative contributions or percentages of each?
I don't. Bill, you want to take that?
And I don't have an answer to that question either, but I saw that question in the chat, and from my perspective, and from what I've been told by people who seem much more knowledgeable than I, that if someone's lived on the street for more than a year, it is so difficult to pull those apart because of the trauma. So they may have started with drug or alcohol or mental health issues, but now you've got this toxic cocktail of challenges and trauma that what you need to do is what Brandy spoke of and what the lead team does. It's an individual focus, and you help those folks work their way through it with support on the ground, direct support.
Hey, Dan, can I add?
Yeah, Sean, please do. And Dave.
We often have many people that we get housed, and we find, or into transition housing or different, anything that where we get them off the streets, they, just like some type of addictions, they don't necessarily succeed the first time. And that's okay. So we follow up with them. If we learn where they're at, we continue to keep following up with them. It's just the same with the chronic homeless that don't want resources at one given time. We don't give up on them. We continue every single contact we have. We ask them, hey, can we get you into housing today? Because there is literally, with the lead team who we work closely with and Father's Heart, if someone wants to get off the street and they want to do a few little rules that they have to follow, we can find them housing today, if not tomorrow. It's pretty immediate. So it's a long time of working with these people and building these relationships.
Yep. Yeah, Dave, you had a comment?
Well, I was just going to comment in addition to, you know, some of the things that have been being said and some of the success stories. I know certainly in the faith domain and the connection and the collaborative efforts, we're working with a organization called Pacific Northwest Adult and Teen Challenge, because addiction is such a massive contributor towards homelessness, or people begin using while they're in a marginalized state. And just by way of success story, we've had 5 graduates that just came through what we call phase 5. They've come out of a year of sobriety in what is temporary housing. Many of them were homeless, but these 5 particular came in and became part of our Promise Center, which is I'm wearing my 3 Trees Landscaping hoodie today because we've graduated 3 guys, and they're now moving on. And so in the last 3 months, we've had 5 guys come through. We got 1 guy now who's helping men and women in Montana in an addiction recovery. Another one we just dropped off in Tacoma 2 weeks ago on a Monday, helping men and women come out of their addiction life through an organization in the Northwest, and 3 others, one that's now working for Ant Farm, being a mentor in Sandy. And so, and they're literally drug and alcohol free now. And so success stories and collaborative works happening. And so super excited about the fact that we're making a difference on many levels. And those organizations where they're working with addiction and recovery, they're certainly connected in the justice system. They're certainly connected with the law enforcement folks, and in the faith community, we're finding outlets for them and retraining them to be more productive members of society in our county, which is awesome.
Brian.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was listening to Captain Davis there. I'm not sure if he's aware of what happened one night here. I was up visiting Brandy at the shower event, and one of his officers drove up there and dropped off a homeless female that was really in distress. And Brandy, I think you remember that. And maybe you can tell me what happened after that. I was really impressed with your officer doing that. Actually gave her a ride to that shower place where she could get help at. So.
Well, and the patience too, because my understanding is this individual who we've worked with for a very long time, same OCPD has as well. And I think they are often assisting her. And so the officer dropped her off at showers, and she was having quite a mental struggle at the moment, and we were able to provide her with some food and kind of meet some of those basic needs. She didn't end up getting a shower that night, but she got some food, and then we connected her to some emergency shelter and were able to provide transportation to get her in. And she had to stay for about a week. Yeah.
Wow.
Didn't she lose her tent previous night?
She did,
Fire.
yeah.
Yeah.
She had gone into the emergency room to get some medical care. And when she returned to her camp, everything had been destroyed and lit on fire. And then so the catalyst was someone had thrown a brick at her. And so she went to the emergency room, and then she came back to find her camp destroyed and burned. And so she was in quite a state trying to process through that. And so she was able to move into some emergency shelter.
Renata, anything else?
Yes, there's several more. One from Karen Morey, responding to the article in the paper today about possessions lost during sweeps and a place to store them. Perhaps this is a question for our police officer. Does
Sure.
Clackamas County have a way to preserve people's stuff so that they can get it later?
So Oregon law actually requires that, and it's ORS, you can look it up, 203077. And it requires a policy on how we go about dealing with unauthorized camps. So what that is it gives us a timeline of, hey, which I mentioned is, it could be like 24 hours, maybe we give them 72 hours. There's a timeline, we have to give someone time to pack up. Then there's also, if we go in there and clean up the camp and they leave stuff, even if it's abandoned, we have to make sure that if they are possessions, that we actually store them. So some of the fees and the costs that I mentioned earlier is we have a pod on site where CNR or the parks or us, if we pick up any belongings, we have to inventory it, we have to photograph it, we have to store it on site, we have to keep it for so long, and then the individuals have time to come get it. So if they don't come get it after a certain time, then it could be disposed of. Obviously, trash and hazardous stuff is not kept here. It's only things that are going to be, could be belongings, and that could be, it may not for most people look like a belonging, but for someone it might be. So that's what we have to do. And so I know multiple agencies that have been sued because they haven't followed that, and maybe they haven't photographed it. So we have a policy in place. Every city department has to follow it. And it spells out of how long we have to keep the stuff and how we have to clean up a camp. I answered it.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. We do have kind of several questions that allude to this. It sounds like Clackamas County has a very successful program. Are there concerns? Is there a possibility that word will get out about how great we are and people from other areas will start migrating here to take advantage? We have Adam wanting to answer.
I'd like to take a crack at this one. Yeah, I think, the regional approach is the best approach because obviously houselessness or homelessness, however you identify, does not respect county lines. It is a kind of it's not just a Portland problem, it's actually a West Coast problem as well. And as somebody who participates along with ODE, Department of Education, as well as other youth servicing organizations and the greater conversation of homelessness in the US, there is a lot of work that needs to be done, not just here, but across the West Coast and the major cities, which is being done. There are measures being passed, as well as support from the federal government. One of these changes that we can make is just recognize that the McKinney-Vento or the Department of Education definition of homelessness is homelessness under the Housing and Urban Development funds that are available to give people these resources and serve these families and youth before it becomes too difficult to serve. That's an easy change that we can make. And there's actually legislation being, it's bipartisan, has bipartisan support being sponsored in the Senate. The House bill should be coming about shortly. But if we could address this problem a little bit more upstream, we would have a lot less downstream problems, which we're seeing all across the nation. And so, I feel like just to recap, Portland and in our city areas, we do have a concentration at, and our city areas we're seeing from LA, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle are doing something about it. And so that's very reassuring. And I just don't think we'll see a lot of congregating if we continue to promote those, like I said, area flexible measures. One thing we could do in the state of Oregon, we have not invested in these area flexible solutions as much as our neighbors to the north in Washington. They invested about 33 million per biennium specifically for youth in these type of programs. We, by comparison, invest just 2.5 million per biennium for the state. So what we do see in the state of Oregon is actually a concentration to the I-5 corridor where resources have been traditionally held. But what we should be advocating for and should see is the investment of those area flexible resources across urban and rural areas combined. And we wouldn't experience that as much.
Dave, did you want to add something? I saw you do a little hand wave.
I did, just thinking about concentration too, like in Clackamas County, in emergency circumstances or emergency situations when the temperatures change and we have cold weather, the concentration of homelessness is going to go where the resources are available. And so we see concentrated scenarios because of our lack of preparedness, for lack of a better way of saying it. And so I do believe that it is a interesting scenario that every business alliance in the domains of these cities, municipal cities throughout Clackamas County, could really encourage our local governments to create a automatic emergency use for faith-based organizations that have buildings where we could actually serve those that are marginalized within our immediate communities and avoid those concentrations where Sandy could serve the homeless community in Sandy. Estacada could serve Estacada, Oregon City could serve Oregon City, Gladstone could serve Gladstone. And if the local governments would make that a reality or a possibility, like recently Milwaukee did. And when Milwaukee did that, there were already faith communities with buildings that existed that were able to be opened so that our homeless neighbors and our unsheltered neighbors could be served right there in the immediate community, and that eliminates concentration. And so if every municipal government in each of the corresponding cities of Clackamas County would exercise that same priority, we would be covered. And I think that just in the faith community alone, we'd have those spaces. So that would help without the concentration.
And I gotta just piggyback and echo just what Dave said and what Dan Fowler is doing and others with the Homeless Solutions Coalition of Clackamas County creates the opportunity to trade ideas and to encourage people to inspire local solutions. And I think one thing the measure will do for our fellow Oregonians is to provide a lot of inspiration for local community solutions across the state. Because we have to start somewhere, right?
Two quick things. I know, Kent, you're gonna jump on, but
yeah, but Bill has been having his hand up for quite a while there, trying to get a word in.
There is money in these shelters. There's now going to be money available for supervision, so the churches don't have to provide supervision; they just have to provide space. And so it is a way to diversify it and to spread it out, and to not be afraid of an emergency shelter ordinance, because it's what you need to do to help end homelessness. It's, I mean, there's a fear, yeah, okay, but it's like we have to overcome that fear with good. Anyway, I'll stop there.
Great. Bill, did you have something you wanted to add before we ask the last question?
Yeah, thanks. Just based on my experience, guys, the homeless folks that are here primarily are from here. We're not a mecca for homeless folks who want to come out. Practically, because of how law enforcement and criminal justice addresses homelessness in this area, it's much less comfortable for them to be here than it is in Portland. So I appreciate the concern and I get it, but I don't think we're going to create an attractive nuisance where we're bringing a whole bunch of homeless people here because life's so good in Clackamas. So.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, the final question is a real easy one. What is the difference between homelessness and houselessness, and what is the right word we should be using?
Well, Adam, you answered that in the chat. You want to do it quickly?
Yeah, I use the terms interchangeably. I actually did have an experience of homelessness when I was living in Southern California while I was a youth, in between my undergrad, which was at home in Virginia, and my graduate experience in Southern California, where literally my job melted. I was a snowboard instructor. I had no income. I couch rode for a little bit, and then that got unsustainable. So I lived out in the woods for a little while on the Pacific Crest Trail. At that time, because I was in such a transitional space, I wouldn't say LA was my home. And I would consider myself homeless. I was without house and without home at that time. Whereas other folks and a lot of our students, I could ask, where is your home? And they might say Milwaukee, or they might say Oregon City. You know, that is my home. I just need housing. I need a house to stay. And it really, it just comes down to that kind of matter of perspective. We're saying, you know, the same thing. It's just to the individual, it's a little differentiated.
Yeah.
Right. I think we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much for a fascinating panel. This has been very inspirational to see so many people working on this important issue. I'll now let Kent round out our conversation.
Great, Renata. Thank you. What great job. And thank you, Dan, for moderating today's panel presentation. I have to admit, when we started working on this a few months ago, and when Dan said, well, I think we're going to have a fairly large group that'll be speaking today, I thought, okay, 3 or 4 individuals, we can fit that in without any problem. And he quickly corrected me and he says, no, we're going to have quite a few more than that, because you won't believe what is taking place behind the scenes. And I think that's my major takeaway from today's webinar is I had no idea so much was actually occurring to address the homeless crisis that we're experiencing, not only in Portland, not only in our county, but throughout the entire state. And each and every one of you are so passionate about the area of expertise that you're working in. I can tell it's something that you really take to heart. And I personally, on behalf of the Oregon City Business Alliance, want to thank you for your continued efforts. I know we're in good hands when we have people like you that are leading these various causes. And with the fact that we're now going to be receiving over $50 million a year in Clackamas County to help continue this coalition, I really look forward to seeing what can be accomplished in the weeks and months ahead. I think the main thing is just keep everybody connected. I used to say there's so much more in a fist as compared to 5 fingers. If you stand separated, you're just one individual entity. But come together as a group, as a coalition, nothing can stop you. And we will overcome this. We understand, as Brandy alluded to this, every single person that she encounters has a story. And as I said in my opening comments, we need to treat these people with respect and dignity. Everybody has their own reason why they're living in a tent or why they're have the issues mentally, emotionally, physically, and we just can't categorize them without truly communicating and being compassionate to find out where they've been, what we can do to help them. So with that being said, again, I want to thank everyone that attended today's webinar. I think it was great information. I appreciate everybody that submitted questions to our panelists. We should be posting a copy of today's event, as you know, was recorded. So it should go to our website, to our YouTube channel, probably within a week. If you want us to send you copies, please just make a special request to us. Now, next month, we kind of continue on this, but expand it to some other areas. We'll have Metro President Lynn Peterson and Metro Councilor for our area, Christine Lewis, as our speakers. I'm sure they'll want to talk on homelessness as well, since Metro takes in the entire region. And this is a regional issue, but there'll be a lot of other more locally based items with the Blue Heron Legacy Project, proposed pedestrian bike bridge from Westland to Oregon City, the possible closing of the transfer station and relocation of that from Oregon City to another location on some county land. So please attend the June event. And it's always on the 4th Tuesday of every month, beginning at 11:30. And we'll be getting invitations out to everyone. So again, thanks for coming. This weekend's going to be in the 80s. So get outside and enjoy our summer. Take care. God bless you. See you again soon.